Hey, what's up, guys? So I wanted to make a quick little lesson. I had a bunch of people messaging me over the week, and they were showing me stocks that they were trading, and I was explaining to them why I would not be trading a lot of these stocks. There was a couple stocks that I did trade, or I would have traded, but for the most part, I wouldn't have been trading any of these things. And the worst thing was that a lot of people were saying that these are A plus setups and all this crap. And for me, there really wasn't like a lot of setups. And so I want to go over a couple things that, I look at my criteria, why I would have traded it, why I wouldn't have traded it, and kind of a little lesson. This might be a little bit more for the experienced guys. Beginners, it might be a little bit over their head. But if you have any questions, just shoot me a message at any time. I'm completely okay with answering whatever questions you guys have. So I'm going to dive in. I'm going to share my screen really fast. So a couple of the stocks that were brought to my attention were Serve was one of the first ones. So over, yeah, well, it was right here. So for me, I have three setups. I have the pop and fell pre-market high, I have the gap and crap, and I have gap and extension. For me, this stock set up for a pop and fell pre-market high. The problem is that's the pre-market high. How I play it is the second this thing pops up over pre-market high, it slams below, I take a short. I'm risking the high. This thing would have stopped me out. It would have came up, it would have took me out and then would have slammed down, which you can then take another short. But it takes experience. You have to be able to read the level two. You have to be able to read time cells, and if you don't have a lot of experience, you can get yourself into a bad situation. And so for me, and the other thing about this, I'm going to go over all of these again. When we look at the stats, but this thing was trading really funny because uh, I believe it has like on the stats, it shows it has 20 million float, which means that there's 20 million shares that can be traded. It's trading at super, super low volume down here. But then this thing starts reacting really strange. Right at the open, this thing has a range of almost $1. So that is a red flag to me because okay, if this thing is only trading with near a million shares, but it's a 20 million float and it has that much range, like that to me, that's acting like something that's trading like a micro float. And when I looked on the thing that I use, it didn't show institutional ownership. I told the guys like, dude, I don't know what the deal is, but my guess is there's some big institution that's manipulated this. The guy came back to me. I didn't research into Serve. I wasn't going to trade Serve at all. But he said that Nvidia had invested like I think they bought like a million shares of Serve at like $2 and something cents. I was like, oh well, that makes a lot of sense because they just unloaded all their shares into these people that like in my personal opinion probably bought the breakout of this high day thinking this is going to go to the moon because Nvidia invested in it, and Nvidia dumped all the shares on the retail traders, and that is unfortunately how most of these small caps work. But for me, I wouldn't have traded this because I don't. Well, actually, we'll go through it really quick at the same time. So, because for me, I have certain criteria. I don't have a lot of criteria that I'm not trying to get super uh difficult with everything. But for me, the thing checks out. Float 26 million. Like I said, 27 million, really. So for me, I'm like, oh, I like that. Insider ownership. For me, that's something that I definitely keep an eye on. A couple of my friends, they don't care about that at all. The only thing they do care about is institutional ownership, which over here, there's a blank. They have no idea how much institutional ownership. For me, that's a red flag. It's not SSR, so that's also good. The stats, it's got 5 stats. Um, 3 of the days close red, which is good. But like I said, 5 stats really like 5 gaps is not that's not that's not a lot of data to go off of for me. Um, but I would have been watching this until the open because the second this thing starts acting like this, for me, that is instantly a red flag because I'm like, yeah, you can absolutely make a lot of money, but at the same time, the way that I look at it over years of experience, it's not about the money you can make, it's about the money you can lose. And when you have a stock that is shooting up, $1 in 1 minute, that can really, really hurt your account because yeah, if you're in with 100, even yeah, okay. I mean, even if you're only in with 100 shares, but you have a really small account, dude, that could absolutely wreck your account, like that the thing can jump up and halt, and I mean, a lot of stuff. It's better to be safe than sorry. So for me, you know, I might have taken a crack at this thing like right here, but like I said, I have 5, 6 years worth of experience. So the beginners that are sending messages, no, I would not have traded this at all. And the other one was CXAI. So this thing, let's go look at the stats really quick. I feel like that's the most important thing. If you're gonna look to trade a stock, the first thing you need to do is you need to look at the stats. Um, Now the float, 12 million. Okay, I like that. Short float, not very high. Institutional ownership, nothing. SSR, I don't know if this was SSR on the day that we're talking about. So really that like you have to look into that on the day that you're going to trade it. If it's SSR, for me, you have to be very careful as a beginner. It's more difficult to trade SSR. It's how I explain it to my students is that it's like essentially it's like stepping in front of a freight train. You have to short on the strength because you can only get filled on the ask. This might be confusing, but you can't slam the bid on the SSR. And it doesn't mean that the SSR won't die or they can't tank. They can absolutely tank, but it's got to be off of like key levels. You're not just going to start shorting. Like, when I was talking to the guys, I would have taken a trade right here because it matches up with my criteria. I would have covered, uh, you know, half of my size, and then I would have got stopped out half. Okay, no problem. It starts to come up here. This is the pre-market high, or well, really after hours high. But I would have been going off of this instead of this for me. Um, but the other thing is daily levels, which is the next 2 places. I would not have got chopped up in here because for me, if I'm going to trade SSR, it has to have something to risk off of. You can't just jump into something blindly. Or, I mean, imagine if you just start shorting down here like a absolute beginner at $2.40. When you're shorting, you don't have a ceiling on your limit of risk. It can just essentially this thing could go to the moon or whatever, and you have unlimited risk. So you have to watch what you're doing. But for me, I would have taken a short here. I would have been out half for my rules. Uh, I might have taken a shot here. If I did take a shot, I would take a small loss. If it reacted correctly, around in here, I could have taken a trade, which I marked out because it was acting in a way that I possibly would have taken a trade right there. At the same time, I would have got stopped out again. Okay, so for me, that's 2 strikes. All right, dude. Then up here, this is really kind of a gut intuition how you would trade this. I would have taken the trade right here. I can tell you right now. And if I didn't take the trade because I was cautious or whatever, if I got a feeling to not take the trade, I absolutely would have taken the trade over here. Why? Because the volume is much, much lower over here. And this is a daily level. I would have been looking for a fake breakout, especially with this long red candle right here with the buyback and then green, 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 green. For me, even if I was here, for me, I'm getting out. Why? Because that for me is a signal that it's about to squeeze. And I'd want to see, you know, yeah, okay, yeah, it's easy to trade hindsight and say that, oh yeah, of course it's gonna just pop and just die. Dude, this thing could have just ripped and went off again. And so you have to be cautious. It's not about how much money you can make, it's about how much money you can lose. The other one is DGLY. So for me, I wouldn't have traded this. Why? Because it hit my final target down here. And for me, the only way that I'll even trade that on half size is if it goes and breaks pre-market high. Because for me, it's not an A grade setup. On top of that, all of my targets are all intertwined. For me, this is just it's shit, really. And the other thing, this thing topped out at $1.83. I would have covered probably everything at $1.50. So yeah, that's 33 cents, but it's like on half size, is that really worth it? Teach their own kind of thing, but for me, and it's pumping out a bunch of volume too. DGLY. Let's go look at that real fast. DGLY. So once again, 3 million float. I already don't like it because I don't like anything under 5 million float. And because it can move really, really quick. It does not take a lot of money. For average people, yeah, $1 million sounds like a lot of money. But when you have institutions or, just some rich snobby kid that wants to, have a little excitement in the day, all it takes is one retard to make this thing just jump all over the damn place. And so for me, I don't like playing with that. I had way during COVID, I lost quite a bit of money because I was just jumping into everything and I started to rethink my criteria. One of my criteria is I don't like anything under 5 million float. If I do trade it, I have to do it in a certain way, and I do not teach, hey, go and trade anything under 5 million float. Really, you need to be having discipline to not just trade anything. The other thing is SSR. Once again, I don't know if this day was SSR or not. Um, no institutional ownership, no insider ownership, which is good. And it is in desperate need of cash, which is another thing I like. But once again, like I said, to make this really easy, how I teach my guys is I like to look at things like ceilings and floors. So if this thing broke over this, what used to be a ceiling is now going to be a floor. And then down here, for me, this is all preference, obviously. So for me, that's the levels. So once again, I would have covered everything right in here because I would be looking for that. What used to be resistance would now be support. And for me, yeah, of course, if you top tick this thing, sure, 30 cents, the odds are you're probably not going to get the very, very tippy top. So even if you get filled down here, okay, so is 20 cents really worth your time? I don't know what your time's worth. My time is not worth that. I want to have the potential of making, 70 cents, 80 cents, $1, over $1, something like that. I'm not looking to trade for 20 cents. Um, Especially on a micro float because you can't size into that thing very well and it's risky. The next thing, GTEC. Once again, it hit my final target already. And all of my targets are ass backwards. Once again, I would be covering everything right there. So for me, that's 220. Say you top tick the hell out of this thing. That's 30 cents. It's not worth my time at all. For me, if it hits my final target, I need something up in here because okay, that's 50 cents. 50 cents on half size because really for me, I'm holding the whole damn thing. It either works or it doesn't work. There's no, half of my first target, half my second, half my third, and the final piece at the fourth. For me, if I do like a B grade setup, it's more of a scalp. It's like bam, it either works or it doesn't work. So for me, 50 cents half size depends on what the stats are, obviously. GTEC, GTEC. Let's see. No SSR, that's good. Once again, I don't know if it's this day or not. Over 5 million float. Okay, I like that. Institutional ownership under 11%. So under 30% is something that I like upper 20s, 30s, that's kind of like my cutoff, and that kind of goes off of like judgment at that point. Uh, Insider ownership, I'm not a huge fan of because like I said a lot of my friends they don't really care about that. But for me, all you need is one dude to mess up a stock. So for me, I don't know. Maybe I would have taken this. It really would have been a judgment call. And another thing is they got a bunch of money. They don't need to sell it. The name of the game is looking for these things that are just piece of crap stocks that they shoot up. They sell a bunch of their shares. They keep the lights on in their business. Retail traders buy it off of BS news that the mainstream media is pumping a bunch of bullshit their way, and they buy in when the big hands are selling. When the big hand sells, I jump in. I short sell with them. I ride it all the way down and make money. The other thing, GOVX. So I did trade this and it kind of sucked. Because I literally got in like at the tippy top of this thing. This was setting up for what I considered a gap and crap. Um, I was going to risk over here, but the problem was it shot up and the volume started just going. The volume was not this high when it started looking like it's going to halt, which means that it stops trading for 5 minutes. It has too much volatility. They need to figure out what price they're going to open the stock at. And the problem with that is I believe this was a low, it was on SSR, so that was one thing I did not like. GOVX. So the day that I was trading it, it did have SSR. It was right at that cutoff of like, do I, 5 million share float? Like, I'll take a stab at it. If the thing set up, which it did set up exactly the way that I planned it out with my team. Institutional ownership under 11%, no insider ownership. And the beautiful thing is they are in the hole. They need to keep the lights on, they need to make money. And so for me, I was like, all right, cool. They shoot this thing up here. For me, I take a trade. I got in like literally like 410. But the second I got in, like 2 seconds later, it started to look like it was gonna halt. And I was like, man, that's risky because it might jump over what my risk was. And I calculated my dollar amount that I was willing to risk off of this. Well, what if it opened above that? Then it's like, yeah, okay, well, you have to make a decision really quick. Do I just cut it? And then, what if it tanks? And for me, I'm like, all right, there's too many variables in my emotions to get caught up. I have a lot of experience with dealing with myself, and one thing that I need to make sure that I maintain is my calmness. And if this thing jumps up and in my head, I hide my P&L when I trade, But in my head, I can calculate shit really quick, and I can be like, oh man, dude, I'm like 2 or 3 hour down. I don't want to deal with that, and it messed with my emotions. But then if it just tanked, that could possibly mess with my emotions too. So for me, it wasn't worth it. I covered. The second I covered, I don't know what the hell happened. It was acting like it was halting, and then all of a sudden it just went. And I was sitting there just laughing my ass off. I was like, dude, you have to be kidding me. Because, I was in at like 410. I wouldn't have held my full size all the way down to here. But I mean, in 20 seconds, I just made, you know, 40 cents. If I even covered, because I mean, like really, like it shot down so freaking fast. It literally hit my third target, which was like 60 cents, 70 cents below where I entered. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, 70 cents on full size. I was like, that's a good trade. And it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Uh the other one was Sita. So once again, I'm not even gonna look into the stats on this thing because I told the guys like, dude, why are you trading something that's trading like 50,000 shares a minute? That you're just asking to get your ass kicked. When you're trading, it needs to be pumping out volume. Volume gives volatility. Volatility allows you to get in and out of a position. The last thing you want to do is get stuck in a position trying to sell, and this thing's just jumping up prices and you can't get out. And for me, it's not worth it. Plus, this chart looks like shit. Like this looks like something from like it's like the equivalent of going from like playing my son's like PlayStation 4 to like going back to like playing the original Nintendo. Like this stuff how do you even trade this shit? I would not look at this for nothing. It didn't gap up at all, has no volume, just absolute horrible. Um PSIG. Dun, dun, dun. So this thing, let's go over it. Let's do this. TSIG. TSIG. I'm gonna stop doing the SSR because I really have no idea if it's today or the day that we're looking at. Insider ownership. Like you said, I know that people, for me, that means something. The other thing is institutional ownership. There's nothing there. For me, if there's nothing there, it's better to veer on the side of caution than just be like, ah, cool, man, it's zero. That's not what that says. That says I don't know. And that is risky, especially with something that's a 5 million float. What if that's 50%? Okay, well now it's not a 5 million float, now it's like a 2.5 million float. And I don't like that at all. This thing ripped up, it halted somewhere. I can't, oh, right here. It it ripped up from $2 to $2.40 in seconds, went into a halt. And so if you were looking at this thing, this is the level I would have been looking at, was right in here. Obviously, I am not getting in while this thing just rips up. So for me, it's got to open. I was telling my guys, I figured out like this is the level that I would have been trading off of, is right in here. Would have covered half, another half, another half, and then I would probably got stopped out, break even. Did this thing go all the way back up to my entry? It did. Yeah, it would have stopped me out. So whatever. I would have lost, 25% of my share size. I would not have I want to capitalize on. But for me, I want to do a really quick lesson. I know I talked really fast and it's a lot of information, but at the same time, I want to also, use this lesson as if this is something that interests you, one of the things that a lot of these rooms say is like, oh, hey, come on, man, like you can invest with $500 and you can make $1 million. They're full of shit. They're just trying to get your money, and you were just like paying into their luxury life. And I feel like it's absolute horseshit. And I don't like it at all. And so what I did is I'm going out and I created a free trading community where I teach you, okay, you have no idea anything that I just talked about. You don't understand what the float is. You don't understand what SSR is. You don't know what a halt is. Hell, you don't even know how to read the chart. Okay, well, what I did was I made a course where I walk you through all the basic steps. Okay, your first day, this is what you should need to do. Once you have this step, you go to the second step, then the third step, then the fourth step, then the fifth step. All that stuff, all the steps before you even trade real money should roughly take you probably 2 or 3 months. The way I look at it is, why in the hell are you going to go out there and pay somebody $150, $200 a month to trade stocks when you can't even read a chart? And so for me, I feel like it's absolute bullshit. And after being in this, uh, the trading community is an absolutely amazing thing. I've met some of the coolest people ever, and they've really changed my life. And I love a lot of people in this community. A lot of the community, though, I absolutely hate and despise because they're full of shit. They're pieces of shit, and it drives me nuts. And so I want to actually make a difference. I feel like one of the guys I really like to follow, his name is Alex Hermosi. And he's the reason I got onto the Skool community. He invested in the Skool community. And he says that the only way that you can really generate wealth in your life is you either need to start up a business, you need to invest in real estate, or you need to invest in the stock market. And so for me, really, I invest in the real estate. Most of the money that I've made is from real estate. I've made more money from real estate than I have from trading stocks. But trading stocks is more consistent. And God's honest truth, I got really, really lucky with the real estate stuff. And so for me, I love trading stocks. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. And so it's something that I can do for literally ever. I mean, how hard is it to push a button? Once you understand the psychology in yourself, it's really not that difficult. But to get to that point is very difficult. And for me, I feel like if people want to pursue something and better their life, why just take their money? It doesn't make any damn sense to me. If you truly want to better your life, I want to help you and I want to give you everything you need to start making money. Really, and the way that I made my course is you don't ever have to pay me money ever. I literally give you everything that you need to start making money from the stock market. And if you don't ever want to pay me, that's fine. You don't ever have to pay me a dollar. You can literally learn everything you want. But obviously, I have options. If you want to expedite the process, you can absolutely pay in and start learning how me and my team do our tracking, how we do all of our stats, how we're seeing the market change, what plays we're seeing, all that kind of stuff. But that is something that even if you joined today and you have no idea, really, it's going to be like 5 or 6 months before I would even really feel comfortable putting you into that group. Why? Because it's going to be a waste of your time and money because you're not going to understand anything that we're talking about. So if you really are one of those people that are like, man, I've always been interested in something, real estate or stocks or building a business, I have people that are in my community that's kind of my goal is I want to have avenues where people can start bettering their lives for free. And so if you really want to learn something about that, click the link down in the description, follow to my community, and sign up for free. And if you have any questions, like I said, just shoot me a message and either me or one of the people in my team will reach out to you and we'll explain, whatever you guys can question about. So I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you learned something and I had a good time. and I'll be back next week.